Welcome to This Week in Habs Land. I'm Jordan. He's Brian. We're here to discuss all the goings-on Draft Day 2025. For what it's worth, we are coming to you after the Seattle Kraken have picked Jake O'Brien, number 8 overall. But Brian, we're not really going to talk, I think, too much about the draft. We'll come back to it at the end for sure, because there's some interesting stuff that's happened so far. Main question I want to ask you, why does Kent Hughes hate first-round picks? In his 4 drafts, he has traded number 13, number 16, number 17, number 26, and number 31. How is someone who is committed to a rebuild trade so many first-round picks?
By finding slightly older gems. In this case, more than slightly, several years older, but definitely a gem.
Right. So I joke, obviously. Noah Dobson is a Montreal Canadien. After we had several discussions on this podcast about what about Noah Dobson, I think we had kind of a pie in the sky, imaginary almost conversation of, wow, what would the Habs defense look like next season if Noah Dobson was on this team? I think we had that conversation in like January or February.
Yeah.
Quite a while ago, definitely pre-trade deadline. And we talked about it again a few weeks ago, and we can come back to the price that I thought was fair, and we'll talk about that, Brian. But just the details of the trade for anyone who has been living under a rock. Emil Heineman, number 16 and number 17 in the 2025 NHL entry draft for Noah Dobson, who immediately signs an 8-year contract at $9.5 million a year. We'll get into those components in a minute, Brian. We'll get into the player in a minute. But just broadly speaking, when you heard the news, what was the first thought you had?
We're set on defense. That just in simple terms, that's really what occurred here. To go from a right side that was Carrier, Savard, and then some left-handed guy that you just happened to throw there most of the time, to the undisputed number 1 right-handed defenseman, might be the number 1 D of the Canadiens next season. Him and Hudson are probably going to be just an incredibly dynamic pairing unless he plays with Gouli. But to go from, what we had to, Savard leaves, Dobson comes in, holy crow, Reinbacher might be ready, and now Carrier is either your 4th, 5th defenseman. That's just, for those people who enjoy watching teams build from the back end, which, those people have probably been eating their hearts out for generations looking at the Canadiens. This is exactly what you want. This is exactly what you want. What a just a leap. And he's still so young, Jordan. He's 25 years old. This isn't like getting a guy who's in his prime already or is since past it to get into your top end. You're getting a young guy who's already incredible and better than most of your young defensemen.
So I was telling my dad about this trade. I kind of broke it to him. He wasn't like the rest of us losers, just refreshing our Reddit pages and Blue Sky pages.
Your dad has a life.
Yeah. Well, I will say I have gotten to the routine of taking draft day off. It's usually a Friday in and around Canada Day, which is so I tend to take the day off anyway. So I have nothing to do. And when I told him about the contract, which again we'll get into, he was like, "Ooh, hey, that's a lot." And I'm like, "Oh, he's 25," and he's like, "Oh, that's great."
Yeah.
And that's that's part of it, where
right. That's it.
25-year-old 6'4" right-handed defensemen who have lots of offensive capabilities and who want to sign with your team, and now is under a contract for 8 more years, do not become available.
No,
it's so incredibly rare. It's not quite a center, right? But it's kind of one level right below it, right? It's not the penthouse, it's the 12th floor. Like, you're right there in terms of how unique this is, in terms of someone being able to get a quality player like this. And yeah, it's exactly what you said. The decor is set.
Yeah.
And we had this conversation 2 years ago with Reinbacher, where it was, boy, it seems like the Habs are going to really do the thing and build through the back. And
right.
It's continued. Like, Gouli's maintained, and Hudson has become better than even 2 years ago, we thought. And Reinbacher is still progressing, and we're going to get into how this impacts him. But you add Noah Dobson. He's the first name on the list now. He is the number 1 defenseman on this team. And it's just, everyone's locked up or has RFA control.
Yeah.
Everyone's between 20, right? That's Reinbacher's probably 20, about to be 21 by the time the season starts. Dobson's the old guy now at 25. You're at 4. Gouli, Hudson, Reinbacher, Dobson, and whatever pairings you want to do, they're set. That's it. Close up shop. We don't have to talk about the roster in terms of the defense really much going forward, really. Because, yeah, Carrier's there. Engstrom's there. There's a ton of guys still there. But you got the number 1 guy, which is so hard to do.
Yeah, we're going to have to look for something else in terms of content. I mean, I don't know how many hours we've done on, we need a right-hand defenseman. We just got one, and brilliantly tied him up long term during his prime.
Yep.
That's just absolutely unbelievable. I'm still kind of in shock, to be fully honest with you. I was starting to buy into the Rasmus Anderson stuff. We had discussed it at length, and there was starting to be some heat around it. And then as soon as the heat around Dobson started, I was like, okay, he's using us again. This is another, he'll end up going elsewhere. And then they end up doing it and signing him. I do tend to wonder just about the contract. I don't know if you want to get into the number yet, but I do wonder if he would have gotten more elsewhere, because he did want to come to Montreal, and I think that was sort of a factor in this thing. Like, they had negotiated the contract prior to the trade even being announced. That was a big part of it, obviously. So I do wonder that a little bit, and if that's the case, that's just still amazing work from Kent Hughes, Jeff Gordon, capitalizing on a player's interest in the team that you are building. So this is years in the making. This isn't just the trade, the signing, all of this stuff. It's the culture that you've built in Montreal over the past few seasons has made it so that players will readily jump to you. Elite level players will jump to your team and take less money.
Exactly right. And we can get into the contract stuff. I want to talk about the player a bit more, but on that note, it did seem like he was okay signing with either Montreal or Columbus. That was the most recent news right before the trade actually broke. Nonetheless, like, he wanted to sign with the Canadiens. It became clear. Multiple reports kept saying that from Thursday night onwards through Friday morning of, he's definitely willing to sign. And you got to give that credit to St. Louis Suzuki. Starts with those two guys.
Sure.
And it trickles its way all the way down, because that culture that you're talking about, that's what they've built over these 3 years or so, 3-4 years, which is so hard when a team is rebuilding.
Yeah.
And just like terrible hockey teams in 22 and 23 and 24, and even the first couple months of this past season. Like,
yeah,
that is credit to the guys in the locker room. That is credit to your captain, to your coach, that Noah Dobson will see it. And there were reports that him and Patrick Roy did not see eye to eye, which color me surprised.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't see eye to eye with Patrick Roy.
Yeah, he's slowly becoming this generation's Tortorella. It's completely unsurprising.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Tortorella has a cup ring. At the end of the day, he's still above him. But at the end of the day, Dobson was okay to come into Montreal, and the fact that this is basically a free agent signing as well, like, which is not overly common for Montreal Canadiens. Like, This is a pretty huge acquisition, and to get that commitment right away is great. So if we can pause on that for a second, I want to go to the player. Let's talk about the guy.
Absolutely.
So again, we said 6'4", right-handed defenseman, offensive capabilities, put up 70 points in the 2024 season, actually got some Norris votes. I think he finished 8th 2 seasons ago, came back down to earth a bit last year. And that's kind of where I want to start it, because I'm always curious when, like, anytime you read about something, you want to make sure you're not just getting a biased opinion, not getting one fan base's opinion. You want both. And the neutrals help as well. But, a lot of the feedback from the Islanders fans in the past 8 to 10 hours or so has been, he had a really bad season, and, it's just, he kind of fell off a cliff, the production and what was going on. So, like, broadly speaking, we both really like the player. I dove in a bit on what was happening here. And there's truth to both sides of, wow, what a steal for the Canadiens, and hey, the Islanders are kind of okay not giving him this contract. So, in the 2025 season, this most recent season, compared to 24, which was his career year, the number of giveaways doubled. His offensive efficiency went down at both even strength and the power play. He's quite a good power play quarterback, although the Islanders' power play in general, not so hot. Actually, their offense in general, not so hot.
Yeah.
He blocked fewer shots per game and gave out less hits per game in 2025. And his points and assists per 60 at even strength really created, going from 1.7 to 1.1 and 1.3 to 0.7. So efficiency went down. Now, his goals did stay the same. I will say that. Scored 10 goals in each of these last 2 seasons, for whatever that's worth. So at a glance there, Brian, it's, did the Canadiens kind of overpay for a guy who we hope gets back to 2024? There's a lot of context that we can get into, and we talked about this, that if you're trading for, when I made the fake trade, I think it was Reinbacher for Dobson straight up, and you're saying, well, you're hoping you're getting 2024 Dobson. So now that it's happened, is that like coming into your brain in any piece of, boy, I hope he really jets back up to what he was a year ago, or is it a lot more context required?
The context is required, and I'm going to jump into the context very shortly. But it's not hope; it's belief. or maybe even belief. It's maybe that's the wrong word. It's confidence, I think. I have confidence that Dobson will get back, to what he had in 23-24. Now for the context, Matthew Barzal, 80 games played, 80 points in 23-24. What did he do last season? Not that.
30, I think.
He didn't play a lot. Yeah, he played 30 games, 20 points. Brock Nelson, 69 down to 43.
Traded.
Bo Horvat, and then traded. Yeah, Bo Horvat, 68 down to 57. Not as big a drop, still a drop. Palmieri, like every single one of these players dropped in terms of, and just in general, the New York Islanders from 3rd in the Metro down to 6th in the Metro. They went from, 94 points, playoff team, to exactly 500, NHL 500, 82 points. So that's the context here. Is that, well, that's the first and biggest branch of the context here, is the team in general sucked compared to how well they played the year prior. And then the littler but still important branch of the context, I don't think Dobson was entirely happy there. Mm-hmm. So and yes, it's a contract year, and so maybe he should have tried a little harder based on that. But not being happy in the place that you're playing manifests itself in poorer performance. We see that time and time again with NHL players, players of all sports. If you're not happy and you're not jiving with the team or the coach or whatever it is, when you move on, you get back to what you were when you were having fun playing the game that you love. Is that a simplistic view? That's what, I think that's too simplistic, which is why I'm saying it's the tiny little branch next to the big branch of the Islanders were good and then they sucked. But it's a factor nonetheless.
I think that's correct. Like, some of the main criticism I've been seeing is he's not overly physical, which I don't know how much that changes. That there are some issues sometimes with him puck watching and with effort. And I think, my opinion, I think we've seen a lot of players over the years become disengaged when the situation that they're in is not the best. Now, is that an excuse? Probably not.
Right.
At the end of the day, though, Noah Dobson's just a person. And if you're in a situation where you kind of, first of all, you get to hear yourself in trade rumors all of last season.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you're in the last year of your deal. You got 1 year RFA left before you become unrestricted. The noise starts early in the season and it carried through all the way to the trade deadline, to the point where idiots like you and I are talking about it.
Yeah.
It has to seep into your game. The team is worse. You said it. Barzal's injured almost the whole season.
Yeah.
Horvat plays less games. Nelson gets traded. Like, it does add up after a while. And you do wonder, coming to the Canadiens, being on this team, like the good group of leaders that the Canadiens have assembled, and just the general atmosphere of the team and the franchise right now. And that's going to be a natural motivator. Like we saw with Patrick Laine last season, where you had a guy who had other issues, but was very much disengaged in Columbus and making his way to Montreal. You can still say in some cases he's disengaged. That's more at 5-on-5. But
yeah,
broadly speaking, Patrick Laine kind of had the fire put back into his eyes. Like it came back a little bit, right?
The fire was there. The fun was there. Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. It's the fun. The fun comes back, especially when your team's better. I mean, the Habs weren't that much better. They were at 91 points compared to the Islanders' 82. There's not much of a difference. So I wanted to dive in a bit more on the numbers to, again, try to contextualize what the heck happened with Dobson and how much of it could you put on him, really. So among guys who played at least 500 minutes at 5-on-5 last year, he was second on the team in shot attempt percentage, so puck possession stats, Corsi, and second on the team in expected goal percentage. So when he was on the ice, the team was still pretty darn good. In both situations, those are over 50%. It was around 54, 52%. Okay. So it's not like it was a Chicago Blackhawks thing where you're second best on your team and it's still 44%.
Right.
All his underlying numbers, so it's the expected goal percentage, it's even his individual expected goals, despite playing less games, his high danger scoring chance percentages in terms of him on the ice versus off the ice, all of those types of numbers, expected goal percentage, shot attempt, Corsi, Fenwick, they all got better last year. The team got worse, but all his underlying possession metrics got better. Another thing that's actually kind of interesting with Dobson, like we talk about him, and it's true, he's an offensive defenseman.
Yep.
We want to see him carry the puck out of the defensive zone, make 2-line passes, and then do fun stuff in the offensive zone. And I think for the first time in a while, probably since Shea Weber, the Canadiens have a chance of getting a guy scoring 10 plus goals, maybe 12, 15 goals. Now, power play 1 won't be his spot, or maybe it will. The one thing I thought was quite interesting was in the last 2 seasons, he became a number 1 defenseman, or at least a top pairing defenseman, playing 23, 24 minutes a night. And I was looking at his zone starts, offensive, neutral, defensive. Like, how was he being deployed in these past 2 seasons? And really what I'm asking is, as viewed as an offensive defenseman, is he being protected a bit? The way Lane Hudson is absolutely protected, because Lane Hudson had almost 70% of his faceoff starts last year in the offensive zone. For reference, Caden Gooley is around 40%. Poor Alex Carrier was less than 30%. Carrier was like 60% in the defensive zone, right?
Yeah.
And it speaks to the role that you're given. And also it's a bit of, like, for Hudson, you obviously want him to give him offensive opportunities, but part of it is protection.
Yeah.
Here are the numbers for Dobson: 49%, basically 50-50, whether he's starting in the offensive zone or not, right? So the distribution is actually, it's quite a bit in the neutral zone as well. There was no preferential treatment. He was not being shielded in any capacity over this last 2 seasons. So I kind of view it as he was given a lot to do to cover all types of situations. Now, he doesn't play on the penalty kill, but like, there were issues last year. I think we can both attribute it more to the team than the player.
Yeah.
And that I don't see any reason why Noah Dobson can't very easily bounce back. And maybe we shouldn't look at points. Points are going to be too easy to look at, and the power play piece of it will be interesting. But if you're just looking at something like maybe his like 5-on-5 point efficiency, like something like that will be more important to track than whether he gets the 60 points next season, because he probably won't.
Right.
But if he gets the 48 points and he's on power play 2, let's say, and he's playing 24, 25 minutes a night, then like there'll be point is, like, there's going to be other metrics, and I hope we don't just say he never got back to 70 points.
No, we shouldn't.
He's an offensive defenseman, but the way he has been deployed over the past 2 seasons is much more broad than that. And that's what you want from a top pairing guy. And I am expecting him to certainly bounce back. I think you are too.
Yes.
And to become the Canadiens' best defenseman, like, point blank, right? Well, that's what we're largely expecting, right?
Yeah, of course. For what he did 2 years ago, for what you just gave up for him and what you're paying him, that's what you should expect. Yes,
right.
Your Calder winner should eventually go above him, let's say, or get on the same level as him. But for the time being, as he's entering his prime and Lane Hudson is many years from sniffing it, Dobson should be the guy. And in terms of looking at other... I love that you dove into all the analytics, because, yes, most people will just look at the points. I certainly did when these rumors sort of started gaining wind, just to sort of see, like, hey, what dwindled here? What didn't dwindle? And what I want to look at, and it's much simpler. It's going to be easy to track. I just want to look at his time on ice next year. That's what I want to look at, because simply put, the more time on ice he gets in all 3 zones, but especially defensive and neutral zone, the more you could potentially unearth other parts of his game. Can he get meaner in the defensive zone? Can he get better at closing gaps in the neutral zone? And can he quell the coughing up of pucks in the defensive zone as well on breakouts and things like that? Because that's the thing you see with Dobson. That's maybe the one, like, what is this? We've gotten very used to that with Mike Matheson, everybody. So don't fear it. We all love Mike Matheson, and Dobson is, he does a little bit of that too, but that's okay. But I'm really interested to see the time on ice. I think just by necessity, he's going to get tons of it. But
right.
While he's on the ice for 25 minutes playing with either Gooley or Hudson, 2 really young and still learning guys, if he can take them under his wing, play really good hockey for 25 minutes, that's basically what I want to see. So I want to see him unearth some other things. And then I'm also curious, that's a positive thing. I'm also curious a bit about a negative thing here. Who was the one player on the Islanders who didn't get worse? There's probably more than one, but the main one, Ilya Sorokin. Is that fair to say? Goes from 908 to 907. Fell off a cliff there, Ilya. No. But I do wonder, this offensive defenseman who is prone to errors, if the not having the safety net that is elite goaltender Ilya Sorokin, we all love Montembeault, but he's not Ilya freaking Sorokin. Do the defensive lapses and the giveaways show through a little bit worse next season? So that's like the one thing that I want to sort of draw our attention to, because we try to be positive on this podcast as much as we can, obviously, as you all know, but it would be foolish to not look at the negative things too. So are you fearful of that?
I mean, there's an argument to be made that Samuel Montembeault's become one of the more underrated goalies in the league, and maybe we're kind of shortchanging him a bit. I don't think he's quite Sorokin, obviously, but there's that piece to it. I also should mention, I was just quickly checking while you were talking, Dobson has played some penalty kill. He's not going to be there too much. It does seem like he's in there in a pinch, but maybe a minute a game, which to me reads as he's the fifth guy rotating in when someone's in the box, more or less. So in terms of, does he have a better safety net? I don't know. The forwards are going to be a bit better.
Yeah.
We can start doing the fun stuff and saying, all right, what are the pairings? And what does this team look like going forward? We can start zooming out a bit on the player to understand that, like, yes, he's not a perfect defenseman. No way. Because you're not getting that perfect defenseman for 2 firsts, Emil Heineman, than a $9.5 million year. Like that, everything costs a lot more for that. But what he definitely is a top pairing right-handed defenseman with a lot of offensive chops, and certainly the capability to shore up his defensive game with Martin St. Louis and the rest of the defensive unit to play 24 minutes a night, be a plus player, put up 50 points every year, and just eat minutes. Yeah. Like all of that is in range. All of it. So I'm happy we had the grounded conversation in it. Now we can get silly with it. But I'm happy we did the grounded stuff. We're like, we know we didn't just trade for, Makar.
Yes.
We know we didn't just trade for prime Nick Lindstrom. But what we did trade for is a right-handed defenseman who's played 24 minutes a night and puts up points. So that's freaking awesome. Now let's do the fun stuff. Brian, is there the part that's getting to me, and we can talk about if one of those guys is ready, is there a more perfectly balanced left and right grouping than the offensive capabilities of lefty Lane Hudson and righty Noah Dobson, and then the defensive chops of lefty Caden Gooley and righty David Reinbacher? Just flip that, obviously. Like, don't pair the offensive guys together. So you put Gooley with Dobson, you put Hudson with Reinbacher, you call it a day, and you come back in 2035, right? That's kind of the plan?
I hope so. That's simple enough said, man. And then you got a bruiser on the blue line as your sixth guy with Jack Eye, and Carrier is still there on your third pairing. Like it's very, very well balanced. There's no danger anywhere, and there's potential for counterattacks on both of the top pairings. So for 50 minutes a night? Well, you know what? Let's call it like 42 minutes a night at actual 5-on-5. The other team has to be wary of counterattacks all of the time, because either Dobson or Hudson could get the puck, 2-line pass to Suzuki or Demidov or Caulfield or Slavkovsky or Laine or Sidney Crosby. And then,
but you're still not giving up.
I'm still not giving up. I still want it. I just saw trade alert we're still watching the draft here, just sort of as we're doing the pod. I saw trade alert and I didn't see any Crosby highlights, so I turned it back off.
No, it is a Pittsburgh trade,
yes,
but it is an interstate trade, which inside the division, we can talk about what Columbus probably got screwed on in their trade proposals. 12 for 21, 22 and 31. Big whoop. Okay.
Hopefully they included the gunpowder in that trade. I'm so sick of that cannon.
Sad cannon noise.
Yeah.
So, it's just the way I think we were just talking about, like, okay, like Dobson's not perfect defensively. Cool. Meet Caden Gooley.
Yeah, exactly. Gooley's not perfect offensively.
Yeah.
Complement each other.
But that's like, first of all, the if we're doing winners and losers of this trade, Caden Gooley, huge winner. Welcome back to the left side, bud. Yes. You made it. I mean, I know Hudson was on the right to end the year last year, but it was always dicey when we were getting into the this next season because Savard was gone. I was like, okay, there's another righty out the door. Big winner. Gooley and Hudson staying on the left, hopefully permanently. I know those are the two best defensemen to close the year for sure. But again, enter Noah Dobson. Now there are 3, and one of them is a righty, so everybody can be on their proper sides. And it's just a perfect balance. And what I think, I would not be surprised, despite what I just said, to see Hudson Dobson be the top pairing to start the year, despite the fact that they're both, will feel like we're playing with 5 forwards a bit.
Right.
But I think as Reinbacher, and Carrier obviously will have a huge say in this, because you can put Carrier and Hudson together or do some mix and match there. But until Reinbacher is fully ready, and maybe we can get into him a bit now with what this trade means for him, I think I would expect opening day for it to be Hudson Dobson and then Gooley Carrier reunited, and then whoever the hell's left of the other 6 guys that are definitely NHLers at this point, or like borderline NHLers, including Mike Matheson.
Yes,
that's kind of where I am at right now with this, and like how in terms of what the defense looks like October 2025. And what it looks like fully formed, which it's not too far away from.
Yeah, certainly week 1, Reinbacher is not in the top 4. If he is, it means he's ready for it, and holy crap, that's great news. But I don't think either one of us has any high hopes of that happening. I don't think it's likely. But at the end of this season, halfway through the season, when he is ready, that top four could be frightening. You're absolutely right. 5 and 6, whoever. On the Mike Matheson thing, you're right about, Gooley and Hudson. They benefit, Gooley especially. Does Matheson suffer because of this? I think some of the fan base, the vocal minority fan base, certainly seems to think so. I asked you when you were the one to break me the news of the Dobson trade as I was working hard today, did not have the day off. Got the news from you, called you, and then I asked, like, how long do you think our fan base will be able to just enjoy the fruits of the labor of the Montreal Canadiens brass, enjoy Dobson coming here, and not complain that we don't have a second line center yet? And you said, forget the second line center. They're already talking about trading Matheson. I was like, oh crap, that's true. Of course, that discussion is going to start now.
Yeah. So my favorite zags right now, we're 9 p.m. on Friday. Again, you need people to zag. Part of it is the comedy of it. Part of it is just the debate that people need, that people crave. How can I sit on the other side of the fence right now? Marinaro, Tony, fantastic zag that the Canadiens should have prioritized extending Lane Hudson before trading for Noah Dobson, completely omitting the fact that Noah Dobson's getting traded today. And
right. You could miss that.
That's one.
That's so silly. He didn't actually say that.
He said it live on air.
That's
okay, another one that I've
absurd.
seen is, well, who's going to be on the penalty kill now?
Who cares? Oh, man.
All right, so that was number 2.
Wow.
And then the third one, and look, people have wanted to trade Mike Matheson probably since his second year. I think the first year was very much a nice honeymoon phase, but since year 2, they've wanted to trade him. Now it's, it was a lot of last year. Matheson has taken minutes away from Hudson, blah, 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 blah. Listen, we did talk about it because holy shit, we talk about this like an hour a week. But second line was the biggest issue last season. Third pairing defense, I feel like we still spent a good chunk of time on.
Yeah.
Last year being like, this is low-key a disaster what's going on. David Savard, if he wasn't a vet, would have been scratched.
Yep.
Arbor Jackeye, Struble actually looked better when he was brought away from one of those two guys and played a bit with Hudson. Like, Struble kind of still showed it, very much kind of cemented a spot as a number 5 guy, I found. But it was a lot of inconsistencies across the board. Okay, now everybody's falling into place, and the young guys are a year older, and you have the option now to have Mike Matheson on your third pairing with no immediate need to trade for him. You could. I won't fight you on it anymore. It's the expiring deal. That was my rule. Nothing until his last year.
Yep.
So that's the third zag. It's not much of a zag because people have kind of, they bookmarked that. They put it away for a couple months, and now they brought it back.
Yeah.
And now it might actually make a bit more sense. Or again, you can just have a really good 6-man unit. It could be Matheson as the third guy, and Matheson, third pairing, 16 minutes a night on the right side. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what that means if he's playing with Jackeye, but Matheson, another big winner if he stays on the team, the matchups he's going to get. He's going to be flying by dudes on the fourth line.
Yeah, very true. Very true. It doesn't bode well for him in a contract year. I don't think he'll be thrilled with that aspect. But in terms of the on-ice stuff, yes, the matchups will be better. He'll be exposed a ton less. Just unquestionably so. Say goodbye to any potential power play time unless they're going to do 2 defensemen on one of the units, but I don't see that happening. I think Hudson will PP1, Dobson will PP2, or the inverse. Who cares? They're both great. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have even brought it up, the Matheson thing. I just sort of thought the discourse was kind of crappy. I like pointing out when our fan base is less than ideal to the players because it happens a lot, and we should be better. We should be better human beings and treat these people with a little bit more respect. But I do get it. You get a shiny new player and out with the old, in with the new. That's sort of the feeling that seems to occur.
Mike Matheson has been a really good Montreal Canadien for these past 3 seasons. West Island boy. We'll be hard pressed. We can criticize his game on the ice. That's fine. I don't think we ever want to go too far with it. And I did want to bring up Matheson. He was on my list. I wanted to talk about Reinbacher. I want to talk about Mailloux and Matheson because I think those are the 3 main guys. At the end of the day, Engstrom wasn't cracking this lineup next year. No. So he can stick around in Laval 1 year more year. That's no problem. Matheson, we'll see. Like you say, it is contract year, and that does matter. But I think Mike Matheson is a very well-known commodity. And I think if someone wants to sign him next year in free agency, they will do so knowing he's likely a second pairing guy. So, and again, depending on how you look at it, you might want to do Gooley Matheson second pairing and just throw someone back on the right side. I don't know who. I'd rather it be Matheson, but
yeah.
And guys get hurt. That's going to happen. Matheson could still play a very important role in this team. He can also be moved before the season starts. I wanted to do quickly on Reinbacher and Mailloux.
Yes.
You already mentioned it with Reinbacher, so maybe we don't have to talk too long about it. This buys him October, November, December, I think. We were saying at the end of last year, yeah, we think he's ready. He can do third pairing minutes. We don't need to do that. We don't have to have that conversation at this point. Go to Laval, play with Engstrom, get 24 minutes a night. The opportunity will arise.
Yes.
Be healthy, play 25, 30 games, work on that offensive game just a little bit more, and we'll see you in January 2026, probably. That's my feeling on it. I know you feel the exact same way. So if we can, what is this? Let's shift to the other righty. Logan Mailloux. Last year of his ELC, he is still waiver exempt, so there's no issue with him having to be on the team. What does this trade mean to him?
The path that you don't want to take to get to an NHL lineup is through necessity, through the coach having no other option than to call up the guy who's not ready. And that would have been the path that Logan Mailloux would have taken if he had been called up anytime soon. And that, I believe, was the path when he was called up. Yes, a part of it was giving a kid a chance, but it's clear as day to me, and I think to everybody in the Habs organization, he's not ready. Defensively, he's just flat out not ready. So What this does, and I want to look at this through a positive view because the negative is obvious. It takes a spot away. But the positive is that he really has to deserve it to get into this lineup now. He's not better than Carrier. He's certainly not even close to better than Dobson. And Reinbacher is miles above him being younger in terms of a defensive prospect. And a prospect whose style of play allows you to get into games more than Mailloux's does. So what this does in a positive sense, in a very skewed way of looking at it, but I hope that he's looking at it this way, is it should light a fire under him. And it's the type of thing where he's going to have to deserve it now. He's going to have to deserve it. If he makes it onto this club this year, it's because he really figured it out. And then the other aspect, the negative aspect, is that he now becomes a trade chip. Not that he wasn't one before, but now that you've figured out your right-hand side for at least the next 8 years, that's what Logan Mailloux becomes.
So I think I started to turn a bit, not turn on him, but like I started to lose faith in Mailloux, and maybe there might have been some subconscious feelings here, like wanting to not want to root for him anymore. That never really went away for the reasons that we all know, and why he did not want to be drafted, for why he was suspended in the OHL for what he did, right? Again, we don't have to get into it. People know. So maybe part of that's been at the back of my head, and I kind of put it away for a bit. And now I'm almost justifying it through, like, he's been better. Like, he's basically played 3 full seasons now. His D+2 in the OHL, which was his first real year in a while, and then 2 years in Laval. And he's been really productive offensively, and he's not been able to fix a lot of the mistakes on the defensive end. And I've kind of, especially in the last, I think 6 months, kind of really pulled back on it. And I know our draft rank, or not our draft rankings, our prospect rankings, I kind of started dropping them lower and lower. And I think, and this is something I've been working on, and maybe now's not the right time to talk about it, but like maximizing your first round pick. And that does not necessarily mean, in the best case world, it's a Carey Price. It's a guy that's on your team for 15 years and he's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
But if it's not that, it's Alex Galchenyuk. And Chucky had 6 good years with the Canadiens, and then becomes Max Domi for 2 years, and then becomes Josh Anderson for 4 or 5 years. The Canadiens are still using that first round pick. You fast forward a couple years, Noah Juleson doesn't work out. He's on waivers. They hold on for him too long. Injuries, I know. Nikita Sherbak, same thing. Michael McCarron, same thing. And there's something to, like, as much as the Sergachev was great, and then they flipped him into Drouin. Like, you still got 6 years out of that pick.
Right.
And I'm wondering, like, the mistake of the past GM and the past scouting is they held on to their guys a little too long, to the point where there was no value. And I think now is the time for Mailloux.
Interesting.
There's still enough there that now is the time. Keep that value of that 2021 pick. You know, don't let it become David Fisher. Don't let it become Louis LeBlanc's a great example, actually.
Yeah.
Of like, it's not happening, but you keep holding out hope, and then suddenly the flame is extinguished. So I'm very much in that camp with Mailloux at this point, and the Dobson trade just pushed me even further to the edge of, like, I think this is the time. I would presume there is still value in a guy that's putting up points in the AHL. He is an all-star in the AHL. He has somewhat high draft pedigree. He has a lot of like big size, skates decently, great slap shot. Don't wait. Don't hold the bag for too long to the point where there's nothing of value left. And again, I don't know. And it's weird that I'm like bringing this up now, but this has just been boiling over with between the Mailloux stuff and like just looking at how Florida's using their first round picks all these years. They're not always on the team by the time they win the cup. Same goes for Tampa. Same goes for Vegas.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're using that first round pick to become other stuff, and they keep that train going.
Yeah. So
it's a bunch of things coming together. The Noah Dobson trade kind of pushes me even more on it. I know I just threw a bunch of stuff at you, but what did you think about like now? I think now is the time for Mailloux, and there's enough other stuff going on that if there's something out there, you should just take that shot.
I agree completely. I don't know that I have that much to add. I think you don't want to hold on to the bag too long. You're exactly right about that and waste the asset. And the time is now because you have the ability to move it and not care.
Yeah. And
not care at all. Your NHL team doesn't get any worse. Yeah, maybe the Laval Rockets score less goals from the point. Okay. Not the end of the world. It's really... I didn't, I started this discussion with the positive of like maybe he'll figure it out because now the pressure is on. But this is the real conversation. I tried to be nice, but this is the real conversation of yes, he's a trade chip now. And that's fine. That's fine too, because he'll probably get a better opportunity elsewhere anyway. So it might be best for him in the long term regardless. So even if you want to think about the player himself, thinking about Logan, this could be the best thing that ever happens to him for his NHL career. If a trade is made and he goes somewhere where they believe in him and maybe they give him minutes in the NHL right away. Not out of the cards. A team that needs offense from the blue line.
For sure.
You have 5 good defensive defensemen or 4 and 1 okay offensive and you have nothing else from the blue line. He could fit in there and you just control his minutes like mad. The Canadiens don't have an interest in that because we have enough offensive guys and you don't want to have to control a third pairing guy's minutes just so he can be on the offense when you have Lane Hudson. And especially now that you have Noah Dobson. So I want to jump to something else completely off topic now because I just fist bumped the air a la Tiger Woods because Carter Bear has gone to the Detroit Red Wings 13th overall, which means we could not have gotten him anyway with 16 or 17. So that was the last thing I was holding out on of like,
right.
The run on centers, you were so right. I did not foresee Jack Nesbitt and Benjamin Kindle. I mean, Kindle might be more of a right winger anyway, but like, still described as a center, played a lot of center. I did not expect them to go 11 and 12. So you were dead on with the run on centers, started right at the start, continued on through the early picks of the teens. And now Carter Bear is gone. There's one more guy. Actually, no, there's 2 more guys that I want to see gone.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll get it. Let's wait a little bit more on the draft. I think we can probably get into the contract stuff with Dobson. I wanted to talk about the forwards and how Heineman, but like we can park that for another episode for now because we're starting to run a bit long. The contract, we haven't talked about it. We went player, we went team, we had the other defenseman. We gotta get into the contract because that was kind of like I mentioned earlier, like it's kind of a free agent signing, which is bonkers when you think about it, but Canadiens have signed him to 8 years at $9.5 million per year. This is, in fact, the second largest contract the Canadiens have ever given out. Brian, can you name the other 4 in the top 5? Number 1 is?
Well, Carey Price, obviously.
Of course. Number 3?
PK Subban, 7.6.
Yeah, so it's Price is $84 million.
Yeah.
We're going total value here,
Oh,
right?
total value. Okay.
Price is 84. Although AAV is the same because I believe these are all 8-year contracts. So the AAV, whatever. So it's priced at 84. Then Dobson at 76. PK at 72. So it is 10.5, 9.5, 9.
Okay.
4 and 5.
We might be getting to the end of my my good memory here.
Oh, come on. They're the inseparable duo.
The inseparable duo.
Who are the 2 best buddies that I could be referring to right now?
Oh, for Christ's sake, they're current. Yeah. I'm trying to rack my brain for like old players. Like Hal Gill didn't make that much. No.
Hal Gill. Jesus.
Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. That's hilarious. What's the opposite of recency bias?
I wanted the record to state that you thought Hal Gill before you thought of Nick Suzuki.
Please tell me you know that was a joke.
Suzuki 63, Caulfield 62.8. I believe if we went to number 6, it's got to be Slavkovsky's, right? And then who the hell knows after that? It's actually probably really fast before we get to Petrie and
Gallagher
and all those guys. Galleys, of course.
Yeah.
So that's anyways. So second richest deal, $9.5 million per year. Probably one of the last 8-year deals ever given out by the Montreal Canadiens. Hopefully.
Yeah,
Lane
true.
Hudson is the last one. Hopefully Hudson's the last one. Cap's going up another like $20 million in the next 2 years. Brian, why should I care how much this is?
Why should you care that it's 9.5 and not a little less?
Yeah, like the most common is like, oh my God, why is this not? This is 7 million. It should be 7 million. It should be stated that like it seemed like the asking price was 11, and then when I woke up Friday morning, it was 10, and then when it got signed, it was 9.5. So you can imagine the bald magician that is Kent Hughes got that number down.
Right.
We haven't seen any no trade stuff. We haven't seen signing bonus stuff. I would presume there's some concessions in there that Canadiens have to give up, but the most important number was 9.5. Yeah, tell me why this isn't a big deal. Like why it's not like quote an overpay.
Because the cap is going up immensely over several seasons. By the time you're contending and you're paying Lane Hudson and you're paying Reinbacher and you're paying all these players, the cap will have gone up a considerable amount. So that's number one. Number two is he took a discount. He took a Habs discount. I said that off the top, like, you know, he was asking for more money elsewhere. And then number three, I think our vision is skewed because Suzuki's under 8 and he was well over point per game. Cole Caulfield is well under 8. We have so many team-friendly deals that if you're uneasy about a fair one, you know, maybe chickadee check yourself, my friend, because he's an elite defenseman. If he goes back to what he was 23-24, which we started this whole discussion by saying we expect him to and we hope he does, if that happens, 9.5 is fair.
By the way, your boy just went off the board, Jackson Smith at 14 to Columbus.
Okay, great pick, Columbus. Somebody finally caught the falling gem that is Jackson Smith. This is crazy to me that he went this low, by the way.
Yeah.
In 8 years, we're going to replay this, and you're all going to be like, wow, yeah, he is like the 4th best player in this draft. So, you know, let's jump to 8 years in the future, high future Brian and Jordan on the pod in 8 years, gloating about this one victory who cares about.
All right, moving on. So here's the thing. You know how we're all talking about right now with the Panthers, not to compare the Canadiens to what is a likely dynasty, but how they just happen to have like Barkov and Lundell and now Sam Bennett and Matthew Tkachuk and Seth Jones all under contract. Canadiens are now 2 steps away from that. Well, Hudson's the big one right now.
Yep.
Would anticipate the next Demidov contract as the next one.
Yes.
And then Reinbacher is the we'll see. Yep. I don't think Reinbacher is going to command the 8-year, $8 million contract out the gate. He might be, I don't even know if he's in the Goalie zone, right? Because he has his 2nd-year ELC to happen right now, so he would technically be extension eligible in 26. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. But it's the 2 big guys. It's Hudson and Demidov. Those are going to be the last 2 big contracts that Hughes has to figure out before you get to the next wave, which will be Suzuki again. But that's still 5 years away. But they're doing it. They're doing it slowly. Everybody's on their good contracts. We know what the cap will be in the next 2 years or 3 years. But what the hell is it going to be by 29 or 30? Is it going to be 125, 130 million? At which case, 9.5 is not going to be it. Also, Connor McDavid's going to reset everything in a year.
Oh, yeah.
When McDavid is 18 million or 19 million, everything is going to shoot differently.
Yeah.
Which is why we talked about Hudson getting 9 and maybe that's low, maybe that's not. If it's 9.25, 9.5, I don't think any of that matters. The Canadiens have so much bad money. It already started to come off the cap. Carey Price's dead contract's going to come off the cap soon. Galley and Anderson, that's another 12 million coming off. There's still waves. It's weird, hidden cap space the Canadiens are going to pick up.
Just Armia and Dvorak, who are not getting re-signed for all intents and purposes. 7.5 roughly. I don't know their exact. I know Armia's 3.4. Dvorak was 4.2 something or 4.4. I don't remember exactly, but that's another 7 and a bit million off right away. Yeah.
Plus Savard's contract. There's a.
Okay. Wow. Okay. For those 3 guys, we got Dobson for less money.
Yeah.
How can anyone hate this?
Yeah. And also, the other thing, because the Canadiens are likely not going to have to be LTIR for post price, is any of these cap overages will likely be able to be absorbed in this current season. And I won't have this thing where the Canadiens get penalized in the next year because the Canadiens are an LTIR. They'll just some like cap background stuff. Because of Carey Price, the Canadiens have to put a contract on long-term injured reserve, and that's how they get that $10.5 million back, almost kind of. It's not quite that much money. The thing is, once players get their bonuses, and it's usually the ELC guys, like Slavkovsky's the big one getting it right now, because they're an LTIR, meaning they technically have no cap space, whatever bonus Slav gets in last season in 2025 actually gets absorbed into the next year's cap. So the Canadiens are not starting this year with 95 point whatever, I think it's 95.5 million in cap space. They're actually starting at like 93.2 because it's not just Slav. I think it might have been Hudson. It's usually the entry level guys that eat the cap. That's another thing. Like the LTIR stuff's going to go away, and it's just lots of cap space is going to free up. The Canadiens are still in great position. He's under contract for 8 years. This is great. He played 24 minutes a game the last 2 seasons. He's put up 100 plus points. He plays on the right side of the defense. I love this contract. I've seen a bit of criticism. It's been mostly positive, but I just, give it a shine. Well, good. I mean, well earned. PEI boy. Good job.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a lot of lobster rolls for May, June, and July.
Yes.
It's still season. There's still some time left. Peak season is not over. At least I don't think it is. I know May is a huge part of lobster season. I think the lobster rolls keep going all year. Yeah. Great contract.
Your knowledge of PEI lobster stuff is sick.
I did my homework. Got to be ready.
Attaboy.
This is the biggest episode of the year, Brian. What are we talking about? We got to know our lobster rolls.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's start turning the corner a bit. I will say to start wrapping, but I know us. This is still going to take us a while. The outgoing pieces. We haven't talked about this yet.
Yes.
What the Canadiens actually gave up. And I wanted to intentionally structure this so we only got to this towards the end. Because what matters most is the player and how it affects the team, how it affects the other players, how it affects the cap, and then everything else that we kind of kicked out the door. So some interesting stuff about what the price was. It sounded like, and this was reported by TV Espal, the initial offer from the Canadiens was number 16, a prospect, we don't know who, and a player. We also don't know who. Or I don't know if the third piece was a player or a lower end pick. We don't know who the prospect is, but this was rejected on Thursday night by the New York Islanders. So we can imagine it's obviously not Michael Hage. It wasn't David Reinbacher.
No.
It's definitely not Jacob Fowler. Like it's not any of those 3 guys because they rejected it.
Yeah.
Columbus apparently offered, theoretically, we believe by reports, number 14 and Dmitry Vorokov, who is pretty good player. Pretty good player. Back-to-back 20-goal seasons, I believe.
Yeah.
So this morning, Friday morning, day of the draft, Canadiens up that. They say, okay, fine. 16, we'll throw in 17 and give you Heineman. Columbus, so Islanders wanted at that point, I'm doing my best to kind of piece it all together here, right? The Islanders went back to Columbus one more time, and it appeared that Dobson was cool with signing with either team. It seemed like as long as the money was there. We don't know if the money was there with Columbus, but whatever. The Islanders went back to Columbus and said you have to do 14, 20, plus Vorokov, plus a prospect to beat Montreal 16-17. I guess they really liked Emil Heineman. I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah.
And Columbus backed off at that point. Canadiens got the trade. So that's just the background on how we got to 16-17 and Heineman. What did you think about what the Canadiens actually sent out?
What they actually sent out, I think, is fair. I think the Islanders should be thrilled with it. Emil Heineman is going to do wonders for them, let's say in their top 9. He was perpetually a bottom 6 guy for us. He could very well end up as a scoring winger who's a bit of a bruiser, who will be very well liked by his teammates for his forechecking acumen and for his ability to put pucks in the net. Had a little bit of a downturn last year towards the end of the year, but a lot of guys did, especially on that 4th line. But I think that they're going to love him. As for 16-17, we're about to find out who those guys actually are. So your timing is impeccable, Jordan. 15 has just been made. So probably based on how long this draft is taking, probably within the next 45 minutes to 3 hours, we'll find out who the next 2 picks are. Way to go, Gary.
We're going to get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So I guess we'll leave that on the back burner. But they are going to love Emil Heineman. I think he's going to fit right in.
Braden Coots, by the way, to Vancouver, another center. So the top 8 centers are gone, and even that next rung of centers is starting to go out the door. As predicted, yeah. It's just bunch of at 16. Now it's interesting that Carter Bear's the one winger that did not survive the center run, and I think that's also making us feel better about the trade. Anyways, on what went out the door, this is what I was talking about you maximize your first round picks. And 2 middle of the round, first round picks in a draft that was not viewed as overly strong. We knew the Canadiens would not be able to get a center of quality, or at least we thought, And that's proving to be very, very true, that basically 10 centers are off the board by the time they get to 16. And that was the team's biggest need. Obviously, like Justin Carbonneau still available, Logan Hentz still available, so those are guys still on the board. But
yeah, Eklund, which is kind of surprising to me as well. And then Lakovic, that's sort of the last surprising one.
Right. Yeah, I mean, again, Victor Eklund, not overly surprising that he was available given the profile.
Sure.
And the lack of upside.
I mean, you predicted it. That was the faller.
Yeah. So I think the value is fine. I think it's perfectly fine. The Islanders clearly wanted to do something, and it was idiotic by them. And I'd like to talk about what Matthew Darche is trying to do, to basically tell the whole world he wants to get James Higgins.
Yeah, well
and we
done.
know they're getting 16 and 17 to continue to move up, and then everyone knows it. Like, does he not listen to this podcast where we've said there's been no pick in the top 6 traded? I know he went 7th overall, but like, there's been no pick. Yeah. Another year, by the way, no picks in the top 6 traded.
Right.
Nothing in the top 10 traded. So I believe that's still.
And not only that, Jordan, this was the year of, I mean, I wasn't paying as much attention 10 years ago, certainly, but like in recent memory, there's never been this much buzz about multiple teams in the top 5 willing to trade their picks. Top 6.
Yeah, they're all full
whatever.
They're all full of
Of course.
All full
of course. Yeah.
Like it's all this talk of, even Mike Greer was doing a lot of yamming about like, oh, we're open to trade. No, you're not. You're taking Michael Misa and you're going to be happy about it, which, by the way, congrats, Bram. Good job.
Yeah.
So the price is fine. If anything, like I will try to be a neutral for a second. I hope we kind of do that sometimes. I think the Canadiens won the trade. Especially the fact that they weren't able, the Islanders, to flip this into more, which is certainly, I believe, was the goal.
Right.
To flip 16 and 17 into more. I think Canadiens won this hands down, especially like when we did the caveat thing about like it was Reinbacher for Dobson 1-1. Like, you didn't give up your 3 best prospects. You gave up 2 mid-first round picks, nothing in the future. My worry was a 2026 first.
Right.
Was going to go out the door along with Hage. Like, if it was me, it would have been 16, 26 first, Hage. That's what I would have wanted if it was a similar type package. And the Canadiens got to keep the 26 first because we never know what's going to happen.
Yep.
And you got to keep Hage, your only center prospect.
Yep.
That's not like in Laval, right? Like Owen Beck, Oliver Kapanen, respect. But like, yeah, we love the Emil Heineman. I think he's still going to do great stuff. Probably should not be getting, maybe just have more reflective vests. I know he's going to play in Long Island. It's not quite Manhattan, but don't want to be getting hit by cars. They have a lot of good Long Island Railroad there. So I try to be objective on this. I think the Canadiens won the value here in the trade. Like,
sure.
But
you're right, though. The one that puts it over the edge is the fact that they couldn't leverage those 2 picks to get higher and to get Higgins. Because I did think that, hey, that's the goal. He was very open about it. Silly boy. That was the goal. Had that happened, I might have been like, oh, geez, okay, we could have had Higgins. Don't know how I feel about this now. But wasn't in the cards, obviously. Though I do think that Kent Hughes, Jeff Gordon would not have let it be known that that's what they wanted to do. You're right to point that out. It didn't really occur to me until now, but like, yeah, pretty boneheaded.
So the other way I wanted to look at it was I was looking back at the trade value rankings that we did.
Yeah.
Which is really just like the value rankings in terms of like, when we look at the players on the Canadiens, how do we value and assess them? Emil Heineman was number 14 on the list. Now that we know exactly who was available, because the Canadiens are theoretically up, they're going to do the thing where they're going to actually announce the trade because Gary has a big red button and it's all stupid. So whoever the Habs are drafting, it's not Carter Bear. It's not Jackson Smith.
Yeah.
I think whoever they would have taken would have fallen in those trade value rankings probably below Patrick Laine. Laine was 10th on that trade value, if people remember.
Okay.
And then Hage was above him. I think Hage was 9. Reinbacher was 8. Fowler was 7. 14 was Heineman. And then in between there was Matheson, Montembeault, and Evans. Evans goes up a little bit because he got that contract. So whoever they drafted would have been in the 10 to 15 range. I'm confident in saying that with Heineman.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is in terms of the Canadiens' value, it was 3 guys between 10 and let's say 16 that they traded. Where does Noah Dobson go on my trade value rankings? So
top 7.
He's not in the top tier. He's not in the top tier. Obviously, he's not with Suzuki.
No.
Or Demidov, Suzuki, Hudson. 1, 2, 3. He's not above. Well, actually, you know what? What I'll say is, I think you already gave me the answer. You said top 7.
Yeah.
I think he might be in that group with Caulfield at 4, Slav at 5, Gouli at 6. He's somewhere with those guys, right?
He passes Gouli. I think.
Yeah.
Slav's first overall pick pedigree and first line abilities keep him above, and Caulfield's obvious with his goal scoring prowess. But I think definitely Dobson, and maybe not comfortably, he's in that tier, and Gooley still is in that tier, obviously, but I think he passes Gooley. I just flat out think he does.
So he is 5th. Let's just say 5th for now.
Sure.
And the 3 guys you moved would have been 11, 14, and 15.
So I do want to fight a little bit on this, because if it's Carbonneau, which it's likely to be, or if it's Eklund, which it's also likely to be, or Lakovic, and I know they're all wingers, and you and I undervalue wingers all the time, perpetually, but I think hockey people in general do they not enter a conversation at the very least with maybe not Hage, but Fowler? Just a goalie? Not even, eh?
No, Fowler. Fowler deserves to be. He's the top prospect at this point.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we had the discussion, and I know that he and Hage were close, and you had put him above, and I had Hage above initially, and it just feels so weird, like a high-end scoring winger that they're likely to get 2 of right now, the Islanders, as we're speaking, that wouldn't be at least in the conversation with those guys.
No, I don't think so. Because also, like, we can't make the decision, like, we have to basically say, like, it's whoever was available. It's an amalgam of
right.
Hensler
okay, fair enough.
And Fiddler,
right,
and Lakovic. It's all those guys together. We can't say it's specifically 1 or 2 guys that you and I were specifically higher on.
That's true. But because if they end up taking somebody who we didn't look at.
So it's still not Hage. It's still not Reinbacher. Even Patrick Laine, I would still put higher. Like Samuel Montembeault for sure. I mean, Monty might at this point be above Laine in that list. And yeah, it's.
I don't know. I'm waiting.
Evans.
I want to reserve judgment on Laine till we see a healthy Laine, but
point is that's the group.
Yes.
This new crew would be between Laine and Heineman, I think.
Okay.
With Matheson, with Evans, like that's the group that you're in right there. Point is, basically, the Canadiens traded their 3 of their top 15 guys, 11 to 15, if that's how we want to view it, for a guy that's solidly in their top 5. So it is kind of fair value when you look at it that way.
Sure.
Okay. So I did want to touch quickly on, because the Canadiens made their move on right-hand center, it does seem like 2C is not happening.
Right-hand defense. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Right-hand defense. And that is in part because we named 5 centers that were free agents that we thought might be available. Brock Nelson's re-signed. Matt Duchene's re-signed. John Tavares is re-signed. Sam Bennett is re-signed. All that's left is Mikael Granlund, and that's not happening. So center is still going to be a question mark. There was an interview with Kent Hughes or Jeff Gordon talking about Kirby Dach's offseason, how he's in Montreal recently. He's looking better. We have to shift our attention now a bit, right? Like and we can do this very quickly. I am trying to buy us time through the Islanders picks being ready before we can kind of move on fully from the draft. But just briefly, like, this is the biggest transaction day of the year, hands down. Are we confident at this point that the Canadian centers are going to be the second line center is going to be one of Kirby Dach or Alex Newhook?
Yeah. I think they give them one more shot. They give them, I'm going to say, exactly 57 games. And if it doesn't work out by then, the second biggest, night of the year in terms of movement occurs. And you could probably find a second line center, not for cheap, mind you, but if they're going on something of a run and the last piece of the puzzle is that, because it very well might be that, that's when you make that leap, I would say. Though I also said that 16 and 17, I'm not even going to put a percentage on it, will not be moved. They're making both picks. And I was dead wrong about that. So watch me be wrong about this and watch them pick up a second line center, maybe Sidney Crosby, in the next days or weeks.
Yeah, that we can all still wish for that. Also, what 50 plus games will give you is better inclination to who Michael Hage is.
Who Michael Hage is. Yes, very good point. Yes.
D+2 Michael Hage will give us a lot more information.
If he starts to look like a 3C, that makes it way more important to make that move. If he's looking incredible, you go, what? Maybe we'll be okay till next year.
Be patient. Yeah. Okay. So let's jump into just quickly to start wrapping the episode. I wanted to touch on 2 other things. Obviously the draft. We do weeks and weeks of prep on the draft, and then Kent Hughes comes in and stomps our heart every year. 2 years ago, we did all this research on Tristan Luneau and all these guys, and he trades 31 and 37. Last year wasn't too bad. They only moved up, I think it was from 26 to 21.
Yeah.
So it was, slight adjustment, but we were mostly covered. This year, it was like, I couldn't care less about you. I'm trading both first round picks. We still probably have some thoughts on what's actually gone down. And I mean, you folks have heard what we've been slowly mentioning throughout this draft. The run on centers happened. Schaefer went first overall.
No surprise.
Frondel Desnoyers did indeed go 3-4.
Yep.
The Brady Martin hype train was indeed truth. 3-7 was the range. He went smack in the middle of that. James Higgins fell a bit. Radim Murka to 9. Buffalo, good job again, guys. Another right. Got 2 righties now in the past few days, Buffalo. Let's dress 14 defensemen while you're at it. Roger McQueen, according to FS, is taking a helicopter to Disneyland. That's where the Ducks are bringing him. So, hell of a start to your NHL life, bud.
Amazing.
What do you want to bring up, Ryan? As you know, we're starting to get delirious here. It's been a long day.
Sure.
What non-Habs specific? What has kind of grabbed your eye from the first 16 picks now that we've seen that Victor Eklund has gone 16th overall?
This new format is unbearably awkward. I can't watch it.
Oh, yeah.
I can't watch it. I just can't. I really wish that the Sharks wrestler person, I don't know her name. I should have learned her name, but I wasn't planning on doing this bit. I wish she had done a full Nelson on Gary Bettman on the stage. That would have been legendary. We didn't get to see it, sadly. But on the draft itself, no giant surprises. I think that, as I said, Jackson Smith falling, I'm surprised by. Like, I think he should have been taken higher, but it's not surprising that the left-handed defenseman who isn't flashy in any way goes 14, a la, Caden Gooley, roughly in that range.
Mm-hmm.
Victor Eklund going 16, that does surprise me a little bit. You didn't seem as surprised by it. You knew he was going to fall. I didn't think he was. I thought the skill was high enough, but maybe I misread it.
It's undersized winger.
Yeah.
Who I think the high-end skill is debatable. The effort's not. He's going to be a murderous forechecker, and everyone's going to hate him for it.
Yes.
But, he would have been really great value for the Habs at 16 to get. Although, where I think you and I were kind of bang on with is it would have been a winger and a defenseman, because there's no more centers.
None.
They're all gone.
Even the ones we weren't interested in because we thought they'd go in the 30s.
Even Ben Kindle, actually, that's the one to me that I was...
Yeah, that's true. That's surprising.
That one threw me a bit for loop, was Kindle going 11, but that was just, at that point. Smith, I know you were very high on Smith. It seemed like the consensus was not quite that high, that it was probably closer to 10th.
For sure.
But whatever, fair enough. Roger McQueen, one of the biggest swings in the draft, although at 10, that's, you and I talked about that, where it was like, we'd be willing to trade up for him if that 10 spot or 8 spot or 9 spot were kind of open and available. And that's exactly what happened. He fell. Maybe that's the certainty and the less sexiness of someone like Jake O'Brien kind of was the zag to Roger McQueen. And that's why McQueen, who could be from a talent perspective, 2nd or 3rd or 4th on a draft board, falls all the way to number 10.
And the Ducks have center depth in terms of high skill guys. They have options, and they just added one. So if he doesn't pan out due to injuries, unfortunately, not wishing that on the kid, obviously, I don't think that even needs to be said, wishing him all the best. But if the worst should happen, McTavish is still there. He's pretty darn good. Leo Carlson's still there. He's pretty damn good. Seneca, who you mentioned, who I forgot about recently, is still there. Yeah. They're pretty good on offense at center, especially. So even if it doesn't work out, but if it does, one of those guys gets moved, and Anaheim Ducks fill a hole somewhere. You're making a face. Who did they pick, Jordan? What am I missing?
Tayshaun Atchison.
Wow. Okay. Well, so another totally fair. Totally fair. I thought he'd go slightly lower, but totally fair. They're going to love him. Good. They're going to love him. Fun player.
So, the Islanders, maybe we can just drive on that. The Islanders walk out with the best defenseman in the draft, and then Victor Eklund and Tayshaun Atchison, 2 guys who are going to be a giant pain in the ass to play against.
Yeah.
Both of them. They might be top of the class when it comes to Eklund's playing today. It's going to be one of those ones. Or Atchison Jack-Eye is going to be fun to talk about in 3 or 4 years. On the broadcast.
Yeah.
You mentioned the broadcast. The NHL really hit us with the hybrid work style draft where half of us are in person and half of us are calling over Zoom. It is so sterile. I watched the first 10 picks before we started recording completely on mute. And I think this is the same building where they hold the Oscars, and they're treating this like almost an award ceremony when it's not. It's supposed to be a bit of a party. And it's bad. The interviews in the hidden room, you have something in person, and then it's, let's have the guy who just got drafted walk 100 feet away from the crowd, turn his back to them.
Away from his celebrating family and friends.
Yeah, and like the whole thing was like, oh, we want them to save time and blah, blah, blah. First of all, no, the pick is in nonsense with the timer. I've learned is just complete nonsense. There is no countdown clock for real. They just need to make their pick when they feel like it. And yeah, I was very open to this decentralized draft because I think there's a way to make the broadcast better and fill up the negative airspace with a lot of cooler things. But man, have they sucked at this. And like, go back to the old draft format. I'm usually someone that likes progress, but like this sucked. This has sucked.
Well, but this isn't progress. You like progress, look elsewhere. This is not progress. This is, you said it best, sterile and boring. You made me laugh just messaging me before we started recording about Shea Weber basically being like, he's on a golf course or something like that, and his phone buzzes in his pocket, and he has to, oh shoot, I forgot, I have to go make a pick for an NHL team. What is this BS? That's
the other thing. This like Gary Bettman introducing someone who is going to introduce who the draft pick is going to eventually be.
Yeah, they said that on SDPN. Thank you for telling me to listen to them instead of the actual broadcast. Way better, way funnier.
Long live the alternate broadcast. Has been very, very good to go. Like SDPN. They usually, when they get out of their Leafs bubble, especially, those guys are some of the best in the game. Yeah, it's been garbage. This whole thing's it sucked. I've had almost the entirety of it on mute. It's so awkward. This Zoom stuff where they're like Daniel Briere looked like he was in a war room, literally. Yes. When like it was all of them in a U there in Philadelphia. Whatever. Like, death to the decentralized draft.
Look, kids' dreams are coming true, and they're being brought into a room to have a Zoom call.
Yeah. Welcome to corporate America.
God, that's what it is.
Also, shout out to Matthew Schaefer. The best part of the draft.
Yes,
him getting picked and like being so. That's a 17-year-old kid. Remember, he's one of the youngest guys in the draft. I think his birthday's first week of September, and being okay, being emotional. It's okay. We don't need the bravado of the NHL of hockey. It's okay to bear your feelings. So good on him. Good for the crowd. One of the few moments where the crowd had some juice.
Yeah,
they recognized the moment. Everyone kind of did, and
it's cool to see.
Good on him for not running away.
Yeah, it's cool to see the entire hockey world behind him too.
Yeah. Speaking of the whole hockey world behind it, let's wrap with this, Brian. I think we both wanted to get into this. The CBA got extended.
Yes.
I think 4 years. And maybe just some quick hitters on some of the updates happening. And we'll wrap on that because, first of all, no lockout. That's the big note for us fans. Like, at the end of the day, all this other stuff is mostly nonsense that we can get into because it's fun. But the important part is no shortened season for a lockout, no lost season because of a lockout. I've kind of grouped this into like, what's a player win, what's an owner win, and what's a win-win? Where do both groups win? So in terms of what I think is a player win, definitively is the signing rights for draft picks is now equal across the board. This is primarily helpful for CHL players. We know this new CHL NCAA agreement's coming in, where essentially these guys, like I would presume, well, probably not Misa. Misa may or may not go to the Sharks. He might go NCAA. He can now jump to the NCAA. And that's so much better for his development. And they don't have this weird thing now where if you're a CHL guy and you don't sign after 2 years, you have to re-enter the draft. That's gone. You get 4 years to sign these guys. If you don't, it's because you're bad at your job. That's it. So that's great. There might be some, I don't know if this details come out yet in terms of like AHL eligibility for CHL guys after 1 year. We'll see. Another player win. Revenue is still 50-50. That didn't change. The owners conceded that a decade plus ago. It's never going back. Apparently an increase in Stanley Cup playoff bonus fund pool. Sure, whatever. More player benefits. That's always great to hear. The E-Bug, emergency backup goalie, is now going to be apparently a full-time position by the same guy. So shout out to the Leafs and the Zamboni driver, but that might be a thing of the past going forward. And then teams will no longer be able to mandate player dress codes, which I could not care less about. But this is what I viewed as like, oh yeah, players, this is what they got in the deal. Good on them.
Yeah, very good.
The owner wins, which tend to impact the game a little bit more. Season, I'm viewing the season extending officially, Brian, to 84 games. I'm viewing that as an owner win. I don't know, I'm sure the players are fine with it because they're going to get more money too. But I view this more as an owner agreed thing. We don't need the season to be longer. We need it to be shorter. Anyways, it is supposed to start earlier this season. It does seem like that's going to be in the cards, and there are going to be restrictions over how many preseason games you can play. It's officially going to be shortened by 2 games to make up those extra 2. And any player who is, I'm pretty sure this is official, any player with more than 100 games of NHL experience will be able to play no more than 2 preseason games, which is a bit of a moderately controversial thing if a guy's coming back from injury.
Right.
Or like 100 games is not that much. You can have a guy who's trying to crack a lineup or make a roster and he's played 112 games. Or he's on like, I think of like Jesse Ullinen when he left the Habs. He was just north of 100 games. Whoever, I mean, I know he went to Tampa and now he's kind of out of the league, but like that's a guy trying to battle for a spot. Even
Jaden Struble, who you think is pretty sure-footed in your lineup, he needs the reps. Anyway, yeah, maybe there should be an indemnity made for that, but all in all, it's probably a cool thing. Get more young kids out there. That's nice.
Yeah. Okay. Other ones. Player contracts. We referenced it a bit earlier. No more 8-year deals.
Yes.
The new rule is going to be 7 years for re-signing your own guy, 6 years for signing a free agent. This seems like an owner win with the exception of, I think, the cream of the crop in terms of the NHL, the top NHL guys. This seems like a win for them. The other 95% of the guys, probably not so much. They're going to outlaw player salary deferrals, which actually John Tavares just did for his most recent contract extension. Who cares about that? It's a little loophole they're closing. Signing bonus is now going to be capped out to 60% of your contract, which is actually a pretty big change. Right now it's been and signing bonus basically, like, I can skip over all the nuts and bolts of it. A signing bonus was something that you cannot buy out of a contract. So what this is doing is making contracts a little bit less buyout proof. That's all people need to know. I can move on. I think the win-win, now we're like the win-win category, sure. LTIR loophole.
Yes, thank goodness.
Is gone.
F you, Mark Stone. F you, Kucherov. Most recently, Matthew Tkachuk. Yes. Goodbye.
Even Patrick Kane back in the day. Like, it's been
I think
going
he started
on for a
it,
while.
actually. That was, 2013?
Yeah. Evander Kane this year, like, it's been done.
Yeah.
It's been done.
Done to death.
Mark Stone, like, we'll say Mark Stone's name again because it happened multiple times.
So who's the last one? Who's the last one? This is the last year because this CBA doesn't hit until...
Tkachuk and Kane, the 2 teams that made the Stanley Cup Finals, use this loophole.
No, I mean, like, this upcoming season will be the last time this can be used. Who's the last one to use it this year?
Probably Vegas.
Jerks. Okay.
Well, Pietrangelo doesn't seem like he's going to play. That seems like a Shea Weber type deal, Carey Price type deal, where he's just gone. He ain't coming back. So maybe not Vegas, but
yeah, fair enough.
My money's on Vegas or Florida again.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Who cares? So that's going to be closed. It's closed in the way where, like, if someone is legitimately injured, they're still going to get a cap space open up, but it seems like they've changed the mechanisms in there. So yeah, those are the changes. How are we feeling?
Great about several of them. I think anytime you're closing a loophole that hurts players, great news. Love that. The big ones I want to hit on, 84 games. We've talked about it before. We don't want the season to get longer. If it was going to get longer, at least it's going to an amount of games that makes it so that you play everybody in your own division 4 times. It just makes sense for parity. If you play a weaker team one less time and a stronger team one more time, you have a slightly, less than 1%, but still slightly less good chance of making the postseason. That's been dealt with. That's great. The LTIR thing, absolutely love that. And I do actually think that the 8 to 7, 7 to 6 in terms of contract years is a good thing. I think the less time that you can, I won't say handcuff because a lot of players love the teams they play for and they want to be there, but some don't. And so if that time can be reduced, the players who want to be on their teams will re-sign anyway, and the players who don't will get out a year earlier. It's just nice for everybody.
So here's where I'll hit back on that. Basketball is years ahead in this, where basketball used to have 8-year contracts, 7-year contracts. It's gone to the point, even 6-year contracts. It's gone to the point now where essentially any contract signed can be terminated after 3 years. No deal longer than 5 years is able to be you cannot sign more than 5 years. If you're signing with a new team, it's 4 years. There's some loopholes in there to get it back to 5. And basketball also has this thing called a player option, where you can sign a 4-year deal, but the 4th year you can opt out of. So it can be a 3-year deal.
Okay.
The point is the contracts have gone shorter and shorter and shorter, and this is as short as I'll ever get. What I've loved in terms of contrast, I always bring up basketball versus hockey, tons and tons. What I love about hockey now, it's different than basketball, is the continuity on my team.
Okay, right.
Whereas, like, if I'm a fan of a basketball team, unless all those guys are super duper young, once they get to like 7 or 8 years in the league, man, they just start pinging around the league. They go, because all the contracts are so short. It's so hard to keep a nucleus together.
Interesting.
Whereas hockey, it feels like, well, I can get this guy on 7 years, I can get that guy on 6 years, I got this guy on 8 years. And I feel like I have a team for a while. And that's actually good because we can iterate and change and make small movements. And I hope that doesn't die away. Basketball has become so transactional and part of that's like, oh my God, exciting, and Twitter, we're all going crazy. But like, it's been kind of annoying as a fan to always have things change and be like, oh, this guy's now a free agent. Whereas with hockey, I know like Nick's 5 years, Cole 6 more years, Slav, Gouli forever, Noah Dobson 8 years. Like, I know this Habs team ain't gonna change. I know I can invest in this team as a fan. Whereas like with basketball, with how short those contracts have gotten, it kind of sucks. So it's only one less year. I hope it's not like we're slowly getting shorter and shorter, but that's just one thing I want to caution people against about the shorter deals.
I agree. I think this might be a sweet spot. 7 years being the absolute max. Yeah. It might be a sweet spot. Because also, like, the guys who don't want a 7-year deal, a la Matthews, who want to just, cash in later, will take a 4-year deal or a 5-year deal or whatever it is. So, like, those contracts are still going to exist, but 7 now becomes the max. Or not now, in, a year and a half, whatever it is, for the 26-27 season. Okay,
well, I think we can wrap it up there. This has been a long episode where we did talk about the draft a bit. We know this is one of our favorite nights of the year. Kent Hughes does not ever disappoint, whether it's drafting Ivan Demidov, whether it's Carey Price for getting David Reinbacher's name, whether it's Slav going first overall, then making the Doc trade. Like, Canadians usually make a big deal, especially Hughes. He's figured out this is a big day on the calendar. This is where the biggest transactions happen. They did it. They got Noah Dobson. They moved the picks out, and we'll see what they do for free agency. We'll be back in about a week, I would say. We'll see exactly how. I think Marner, weirdly enough, is going to dictate how much other stuff happens until he signs. Then Ehlers will sign. Then
right.
They'll be. So I don't know when our next episode will be. I will confidently say it'll be between July 2 and July 7.
Isn't that just the weirdest thing in the world for us to be waiting for something having to do with Marner in order to release an episode that just feels icky? I
hate that he's. I hate that he's probably going to go to Vegas, and then he's going to weirdly become likable.
You know what? I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all.
I'm going to clip this for 6 months from now when he's the LTIR guy.
Yes. Well, so that's part of it, certainly.
We did our best to cover as much as possible. Noah Dobson, welcome to the Montreal Canadiens. You're going to absolutely love it here.
Yes.
Like we've said with other guys, if you give a damn and you put your heart and hustle out there, the skill's fine. But if you put your heart and hustle out there, the Bell Center's going to love you. I'm sure Nick's going to tell him this. Slav's going to tell him this.
Gallagher's going to tell him this.
Gally, I have a very strong inclination he's going to be sat next to Gally at some point in the dressing room. I know they changed where guys move around, or the stall next to Nick always opens up. I wouldn't be surprised if that's another thing. Point is, we're all very excited. We'll wrap the episode here. You can follow us at Habsland Pod on Blue Sky and TikTok. If you like what you heard, feel free to leave a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Until our next episode, go Habs.